It's hot.
Woo! It is hot, hot, hot. Oh, look, the skies are blue for forever.
Okay, one last time we have to endure the sweltering heat in here.
Just one more time this day?
Just this way.
Okay, cool. So
yes, we're going to Montgomery, Alabama. Plane's getting air conditioning.
Yes, we're getting air conditioning for the Bonanza. The heat isn't too bad in Iowa, but with 2 of our 3 girls now living in the south, we're going to be battling heat a lot more often than icing on future trips. So this is a good time to do the update. For that, we're taking November 7 Zero Tango Bravo to Kelly Aerospace Thermal Systems in Montgomery, Alabama.
Bonanza 70 Tango Bravo, Montgomery approach, Montgomery altimeter 29904.
29904, thank you.
Bonanza 0 Tango Bravo, you're not Martin Foley, are you?
I am.
Oh, I love the channel.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really like the Rich of Peak and Lean to Peak stuff and the facility tours you've done.
Ooh, hot.
it's very hot.
34
Holy
degrees.
buckets.
Okay, gas is on a good tank, undercarriage, mixture, propeller, all good.
I was able to stick around for most of the installation to really understand how the system works and how it is installed. We dropped the plane off on a Sunday evening, and the work began bright and early on Monday morning.
Montgomery Tower Information, Charlie's
Perfect.
current altimeter 29904.
That was perfect.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hey guys, we're at Kelly Aerospace Thermal Systems. We've got Martin's kit fully laid out, ready to start the teardown and taking out the interior and then fitting everything in. So I want to go over a couple key components that are part of our system. So first we've got our compressor here. So very small, lightweight compressor, but still puts out the all the BTUs that you need and all the air. So, and then we've got our condenser assembly, which is manufactured here in Montgomery, Alabama. And we've got our evaporator here, which will go along his back wall, the fan. So, and then all the other components along with the electrical and all of the metal work that is done here in Montgomery, Alabama. We bend all of our metal here. We've got all of our plastic, all of our electrical wiring. So we're ready to start the teardown and get everything installed in Martin's plane.
Will gets busy removing the interior.
My name is Will Goodling. I've been with Kelly for almost 2 years now and been really enjoying this job. My stepdad flies a Cessna 172, so he kind of got me into it a little bit, brought me around planes and everything. So as soon as that happened, I jumped into it, and I've always been kind of a mechanic on the mechanic side of things. So I started working on his plane a couple of times and then got introduced to this job, and that's really how I got this job.
An aircraft air conditioning system works the same way as air conditioning in your car or home, and it has the same 3 main components to transfer heat from the inside to the outside: a compressor, a condenser, and an evaporator. And of course there are other components in the installation kit like brackets, wires and ducts, and a control panel. The job now is to put all of this into my Bonanza. Almost all components go into the tail of the Bonanza. It's going to be a busy area as it already contains autopilot servos and other avionics equipment. How long does it take to add AC to an aircraft, and where can the installation be done? There are a few options, as Michael explains.
We've got the Cleveland, Ohio location right there in Willoughby, and then we've got the Montgomery location here where we are now. And we also sell the kit, so you can buy it as a kit and have your A&P do it for you. It's a longer installation if you have your own A&P do it compared to if you come to us. Our guys have been doing them for 10 years. They're quick, and I feel they'll get you in and out a lot quicker than I think your A&P will, following instructions and trying to figure it out on the go if they've never done one before. So I would recommend coming to one of our locations. I would. But also, if you want to try and do it on your own with your A&P, I think it'd be a fun project for you at home and to be able to do something like that on your own. So whichever one fits better for you is what I would recommend.
Okay.
So
For many years, the Kelly company built alternators, so maybe one shouldn't be surprised that the Kelly Thermal Systems air conditioning is electrically powered. The main advantage for pilots and passengers is that this AC can run without the engine running, using just a ground power unit.
You're able to plug it in without turning the aircraft on, at least a 50 amp GPU system box or something like along those lines, and run your finger over the piezo switch, and it should start up your system. And it's actually programmed to turn it on the lowest temperature and the highest fan to start. And then once you get in, you can change it and set your temperature and change your fan control on your own. But it's actually nice because you can keep your airplane locked and have a ground crew or someone out there, and go plug it in if you need to. Or if you have your own hangar, you can get there early, plug it in and just run your finger over. You don't have to climb in the aircraft and do all of that, still when it's hot outside. So I would say that's a big plus to one of our systems, is being able to turn it on without the engine even being on. So
The power cables for this system are pretty massive, so they can deal with the high current efficiently.
So it looks like the main power supply, is that for the compressor or the whole system?
This is the whole system. So we got to run this through the firewall, and it goes all the way down back to our system.
Yep, I can see it.
The ground wire gets attached to the ground bus bar. Then, on the other side, the power wire is attached to the battery bus. I have a 60 amp alternator right now, which has been more than enough for avionics and lights, but it's not enough to also drive the all-electric air conditioning. So we need something a little bigger. Kane is getting ready to install this shiny new 100 amp alternator.
So he has a 60 amp plane power, 60 amp installed right now, and that is not enough to keep up with the AC system. And so we're going to swap it out here with a ES 124. It's a 100 amp alternator from Plane Power. That'll give him enough amperage to have the AC going and all of his upgraded avionics. And it's really not that hard of a process to swap these two, especially since they're both already Plane Powers. You have some electrical connections that you have to take apart, of course, and just swap over to the 100 amp. I had to check the gauge on his power wire to make sure that it is suitable for the 100 amp alternator. Maybe put on a new sound dampener since it's kind of rusted, make it look pretty. But other than that, it's just taking the electrical connections off, checking everything, making sure none of the terminals are loose, taking the alternator off, and putting the gear drive from the 60 to the 100 amp and installing it, and then installing the 100 amp onto the airplane. And that's that.
Meanwhile, Will is busy inside the cockpit with the wiring for the AC control panel and the external AC switch.
So this is a power wire for the CB2 that I'm gonna mount right here.
That's the remote, that's the controller for the
Yeah.
temperature.
And then these two plugs go in there too. And then here's a ground right here. And then I gotta mount this ice cube up under here. And it's got a ground, external power, and this is for the piezo right here.
Oh, okay.
So I'm getting all this about ready.
It is summer in Alabama, and yes, it is quite hot in the hangar. Thankfully, Michael has some cool refreshments for the team during a break.
I don't really know what yours is.
So where to mount the AC controller? It's not a big device, but my panel is pretty full with avionics. Therefore, Will gets creative and fabricates a bracket which will hold the controller at a neat angle where it's easy to see and easy to reach. Even the paint of the bracket matches. The whole thing looks beautiful. The next morning begins with something that looked scary to me, the airplane owner, cutting holes into the fuselage to facilitate the airflow through the condenser. The kit contains a template which ensures we drill holes for rivets in all the right places.
All right, so this is going to be your inlet side The other side will be your outlet side. So we'll cut this hole, and when we cut this hole, we'll be able to install brackets, but you'll have your compressor on this side of the airplane. I'll put a scoop here. So when you're taxiing or flying, airflow will go through this hole to keep the compressor and all the components, cool. And you'll have a condenser fan on the other side where it's sucking the air and blowing the hot air throughout the other side of the airplane.
And then Kane gets serious about these holes, and I realize there is no turning back from this. We really are getting air conditioning now.
So I guess the only reason I use shears, especially on the left-hand side, is you have a wire that runs through this channel right here. You got this black wire, and yeah, you've got this stringer that you don't want to cut into, and you've got this wire that you don't want to cut into. So that's my reasoning for using shears right there. You could use a nibbler, or you could use a cut-off wheel or a grinder of some sorts, but I'm always very precise with the shears. I've been doing that for years, so that's why I do that.
A doubler is added for structural support. In the end, this opening will house the compressor. And there's a similar cutout on the opposite side. This is where the condenser will be mounted. At the same time, Will completes the electrical installation by adding a fuse for securing all wires in the front. More holes are being drilled for rivets. Then the installation of the brackets begins inside the tail. The kit makes all of this relatively straightforward, but where do the parts in the kit come from?
So far we've seen a lot of things going on at the hangar at the airport, but a lot of things happen before we even get there. There's metal work, there's part storage, all the kits that get assembled, some of which are shipped to the hangar, others are shipped to other places for installation. And Kelly has a different site here in Montgomery for all of that. Let's go take a look.
So here at our manufacturing plant, we've got enough inventory here to send out 3-4 kits and keep that in inventory. So we're ready to ship out our system right when you need it and readily available. So we try to keep that pretty consistent.
But there's more than just storage in this building. Assemblies like evaporators are built here, and a lot of sheet metal work happens here to create components for the install kits.
So right here you can see the actual finished product of it. And you can take a look around it and see like, okay, which side to do or how much it should be. And if you want to make sure you actually see the 3D layout of what it looks like here, I hit check, and it'll check for collisions and stuff like that. And then with any first piece, what I'll do is I check the degree on it first. So it's supposed to be a 90. Look at that. About dead on. So then I know this flange here is 1.532 plus minus 30. .528, so it's only off by 4 thousandths. Yeah.
And if you're wondering what part that was that we just saw being bent, well, you can see it here on the side of the condenser for my Bonanza system. Back at the shop hangar, the doublers are fixated permanently with rivets. The compressor is mounted on vibration isolators and secured firmly.
So these are just your compressor vibration isolators. It's a 2-part. You'll see me put the second part on here in a minute. But the compressor will sit on top of this guy, and then it has a top part, and I'll put a washer through the bolt in there, and it just protects the aircraft because when the compressor is on, it vibrates, and you can hear the humming sound when the compressor is turned on. So we'll go ahead and install those real quick. The washer on top and put your bolt through.
The installation manual shows what connections need to be made. Moving on, The next step is paint. Chris is preparing the area by masking it. Then he mixes the best possible match for the paint scheme on my Bonanza, which consists of white and 2 accent colors. Because multiple colors are involved, we'll take multiple iterations of masking and painting, with some wait time in between so the paint can dry. I asked Walter Dodge, who runs business development for the company, what the main selling points of Kelly's electric air conditioning system are.
My name is Walter Dodge. I'm with Kelly Aerospace Thermal Systems. The technology is inherently lighter weight than what was out there. When you hang a compressor on the front of an airplane on the engine, like most of them, and like your car, and you run all the way to the back of the airplane to hook up to your components, you have a lot of hoses. That's a lot of extra weight, a lot of freon, and frankly, often a lot of connections, which is why after a year or two on a brand new system, you got to service it every year. Freon levels gotten low. There's a lot of places it can leak out. The longest hose in our system's probably 32 inches, something like that. It hooks to a component on each end of that, so there's not a lot of that. It's simple. It's very simple. We walked around and talked to people about the air conditioning, and of course we've had airplanes with air conditioning, so we weren't totally green. But we walked around and talked to them about, what do you not like about your system? Well, it doesn't work very well on the ground. If we do work on the ground, we got to rev the engine up pretty high and work our brakes pretty good. And I got to shut it off to take off. But boy, when I get up there about 5,000 feet and I don't really need it, it works like a champ. So when we thought all that through, and I mean, yes, that's humorous and everything, but quite frankly, that's what was available. So we kind of engineered those things into our system, and it's been a great, great system for us.
The final step of the installation is the evaporator. It is mounted just behind the cabin, where warm cabin air is fed to it through a duct. The cooled air from the evaporator is then fed into the ceiling air vents, from which each seat in my Bonanza can get fresh air. A thorough test of the system on the ground completes the installation. The Bonanza is now ready for me to pick up. Propeller high, throttle, brakes to ridge, brake set, clear!
Into 70 Tango Bravo, Montgomery ground runway 28, taxi via Alpha, cross runway 21 on Alpha, and give way to the Challenger entering Charlie.
Runway 28 via Alpha, cross 21 on Alpha, give way to the Challenger, Bonanza 70 Tango Bravo. Okay, this is Alpha here. Clear right, clear left.
November 0 Tango Bravo, verify up, Mike.
Bonanza 0 Tango Bravo, I have Mike, and I'll be ready at the end. Alright, this is exciting. It is cool in here. We got an outside air of 34 degrees Celsius outside air, and I am comfortable here. This is a game changer.
70 Tango Bravo, Montgomery Tower, fly runway heading, runway 28, clear for takeoff, wind 3507.
As comfortable as air conditioning is in flight, remember that one of the differentiating features of the Kelly Aerospace Thermal Systems AC is that it can also run on the ground while the aircraft is parked. I wanted to test how well that works, and I picked a miserably hot and humid summer day to give it a try.
Leader up to airport information, uniform 175 Zulu, wind 2103, smoothly 10, clear, temperature 33, dew point 22, altimeter 3002.
The sky was cloudless, the wind was calm, and the intensity of the sun was high at midday in August. My Bonanza had been parked outside for about an hour when this experiment started, with the doors and windows closed. The cabin had gotten really hot under these conditions. The temperature inside was 115 degrees Fahrenheit with a dew point of 80 degrees. Not comfortable by any means.
To run the air conditioning on the ground, the spec says I need at least a 50 amp ground power unit. Now there are some available that you just plug in, but the catch is many of them require more than a normal 15 amp circuit will do. So it really depends on what kind of power you have available in your hangar. Many hangars just have a very basic outlet, 110, 120 volts. No 240 volts, no 20 amp or higher outlet. So that puts it at the very borderline of what you need. Now, coming to the rescue here from Best Tugs is their power cards, continuous GPU up to 56 amps, coupled with, on the bottom here, a battery, very, very massive battery. The whole thing is about 200 pounds. So this is not something that I'm going to travel around with. How it works is the battery augments and supplements the power coming from the continuous GPU here on top. So that any surge, like when I first turn it on or when I use the avionics in addition to the air conditioning, is handled perfectly by this combination here, even though my wall outlet would not be sufficient to do this all at once. So it's a little bulkier, it's a little heavier, but it seems to be the perfect thing to have here in my hangar to make sure that we get a cool cabin. Let's go see how well it works.
On the side of these airplanes, we put what's called a piezo switch. You can call it to your FBO and have them plug in a 50 amp or better ground power unit, and they can turn your air conditioner on without unlocking your airplane. That has really meant a lot to people in the South. I have some customers, one in particular in Arkansas, who's got it all rigged through his phone. He calls as he's on his way. It opens his hangar door. He calls again and turns the air conditioner on. He's much smarter than I am, but those kind of things matter to some people. They really do, and it works very, very well. That's going to come on wide open, and then it starts cooling it open, so you open it up and you don't get that, oh my God, oven look. It works pretty well, but that has been a really neat thing, and that's part of the deal. You do get that.
I had a camera inside the cabin pointed at these two thermometers, the left of which was set to show temperature and the right one the dew point, because humidity is just as important as temperature when it comes to cabin comfort. I placed the thermometers such that they were in the shade and not directly hit by cold air from the vents, so that we can see the true cooling of the whole cabin, not just the temperature of the incoming fresh air. Both the temperature and the dew point are declining once the AC is running. And you can see here how water is dripping from the drain hole as humidity is removed from the air. In the end, after about an hour, the temperature had stabilized near 95 degrees, with a dew point of 62. Now, 95 degrees is still warm, but this is 20 degrees cooler than it was. And considering where we started and also the vast drop in humidity, I'll gladly take it. And this was under what I would call worst case conditions. The aircraft parked outside at noon on a hot and humid day, no shade from a roof or clouds, and no canopy cover, window covers, or jet shades installed. Any of those will reduce the temperature further.
Man, the AC systems in really all the airplanes that we install, you need to get one. They are life changers, especially when you're out on that taxiway, dripping sweat. It changes when you can close that window and have some ice cold air blowing on you.
This is a really nice feature. At home, I can plug in the power card from Best Tugs and keep the cabin cool while I get the plane ready for flight. Or update the databases and play with the avionics without breaking a sweat. On the road, I can call the FBO an hour before departure and ask them to plug in a GPU, simply touch the piezo switch next to the power receptacle, and the plane will be so much more comfortable when we get there. It's a big advantage of the all-electric system. For cars, AC is pretty much a standard feature these days. So why don't all airplanes have air conditioning? Well, besides the cost, weight is an important thing to consider. Kelly's electric system weighs just over 60 pounds, and almost all items are installed behind the cabin in the rear of the airplane. This adds the center of gravity to the list of things to think about. You can see here from the updated weight and balance that my CG shifted rearwards by almost 3.5 inches. That's a lot, but an A36 is usually a nose-heavy airplane, unlike the V-tails or F-33 Bonanzas. You can see here in the CG envelope that after the AC added, the airplane is still well within the allowed CG envelope for typical scenarios. You probably won't be flying with adults in all 6 seats. You'll have to be more careful about who sits in the rear seat when flying with 4 adults. Since the vast majority of my flights are either just me or me and Becky, it's a non-issue for us. I would even say that my formerly very nose-heavy November 70 Tango Bravo now handles a little nicer on our flights.
And now back at home, you see me again using the system, air conditioning and the best power card to provide comfort as I update the avionics and get the cockpit ready for a flight early tomorrow morning. Thanks for watching. This was it for the installation of the air conditioning from Kelly Aerospace Thermal Systems. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe on the way out. That helps me grow the channel. And as always, a very special thank you to all the supporters on Patreon. You all help make these videos possible. See you all soon in another video. Bye-bye.